Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Jamaica is struggling with increasing numbers of COVID-19 positive cases. This story takes the lead in our 1046th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 9th February 2021. Details after this break.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world? And you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
Welcome back. Jamaica has recorded a major increase in positive COVID-19 cases, with 263 new cases recorded recently. More in this TVJ News item with O'Shane Masters.
70 of the new cases are in the corporate area, 64 in St. Catherine, 46 in Manchester, 32 in Clarendon, 20 in St. Anne and 12 in St. Elizabeth. All parishes except St. Mary recorded cases of the coronavirus. This has pushed the country's COVID case count to 16,513. Meanwhile, there were 2 additional deaths, pushing that figure to 357. They are a 78-year-old man from St. Mary and a 71-year-old man who lived in St. Catherine. 1 death is under investigation. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the country's healthcare system will have to provide support to individuals who get sick from taking the COVID-19 vaccine to be provided to Jamaica from AstraZeneca. The vaccines are expected to be rolled out starting later this month. Dr. Tufton has, however, indicated that the producers of a vaccine will not be held responsible if anyone has an adverse reaction when it is administered.
The drug companies working through the COVAX arrangement that the WHO, World Health Organization, has coordinated, have said that the countries that are accessing the vaccines should sign an indemnity to essentially rid them of liability should anything happen. And that was the basis on which we would access the vaccine. This doesn't apply to Jamaica alone, Ms. Kitty. It applies to all the countries. Yeah.
Dr. Tufton said the indemnity was granted because of the emergency approval process the vaccine underwent. He, however, assures that the data show the vaccine is safe.
Over in Trinidad and Tobago, Senior Counsel Ramesh Lawrence Maraj is apologizing to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley for erroneous statements he made in blaming the PNM for the present 6-6 deadlock in the THA election. More from TV6's Elizabeth Williams.
I wish to assure my parliamentary colleague for over 10 years, the Honourable Prime Minister, who made comments on this, that at no time I intended to give that impression, because that was not the records. The records of the Parliament show that the opposition supported the Tobago House of Assembly bill, but it did not support the Constitution Amendment Bill of 1996.
Mr. Maraj said he got his facts wrong and wished to make some things clear.
I wish to make it clear that in those statements which I made, there was no intention on my part to give the impression that the then opposition in the Parliament was in any way responsible in its contributions on the Tobago House of Assembly bill for the legislation to permit that deadlock which has now occurred in Tobago.
Mr. Maraj said his comments were in fact incorrect.
If I gave that impression in those comments, that would not have been correct, because the then opposition in the Parliament gave full support to the Tobago House of Assembly bill. And that impression is regretted.
Mr. Maraj spoke on Friday during a virtual media conference to speak on the Tobago House of Assembly elections stalemate. Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News.
DSS founder Keron Clark remains in police custody following his arrest roughly 48 hours ago. Clark was discharged from hospital early on Sunday after being admitted for what his lawyers describe as chest bruising brought on by alleged police brutality. Vanessa Cutting of TV6 News reports.
CCTV footage from the home of DSS founder Keron Clark provides video of the events that unfolded Saturday night when officers attempted to execute a search warrant at Clark's home. In video obtained by the Express newspaper, around 7:20 p.m. on Saturday, Clark is seen handcuffed and leaning against a wall at the front of his home. An officer then approaches him and attempts to escort him inside, at which point he resists and pulls in the opposite direction. He's restrained and pushed inside the house by 4 officers. The cameras pick him back up on the floor of the gallery, with 2 officers over him restraining him, while a 3rd officer looks on. A 4th officer then appears with another pair of handcuffs, which are also placed on Clark while he continues to struggle. At one point, an officer is seen moving a bag on one of the chairs in the gallery, at which point 2 registration plates fall out onto the floor. The video ends with Clark sitting in the doorway. TV6 contacted his lead attorney, senior counsel Sophia Choate, who confirmed that Clark was taken to Mount Hope Hospital following the incident.
Attorneys representing him went to his home, by which time he had received injuries while in police custody. When the attorneys arrived, seeing his condition, they asked that he be taken for medical attention. It appears as though a police officer knelt on his chest and the muscles of his heart were bruised, were injured. So he had to be kept overnight and tests had to be done and so on.
Clark was discharged on Sunday. However, Choate could not say whether Clark is in possession of a medical report or what were the findings of the tests. Clark was then escorted to the St. Joseph police station where he filed a report on the incident, following which he was to be taken back to his home for officers to execute the warrant. What happens next from a legal perspective?
Well, we are looking at all our legal options, and it is not something that I would like to discuss at this point.
In response, police sources tell TV6 it has become customary for lawyers to advise their clients to claim that they have a medical issue so as to delay or thwart police investigations. This is the 5th raid of the DSS premises to date. Vanessa Cutting, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
United National Congress is once again calling for the resignation of National Security Minister Stuart Young. Added to the reasons ventilated previously, the UNC feels that there was a nonchalant response to the malfunctioning CCTV cameras in the country. The party also reinforced why it is not supporting the evidence and bail amendment bills. Alicia Boucher of TV6 News has more in this report.
The UNC's decision not to support the bail amendment bill and the evidence bill has been a topic in the forefront, especially with the recent murder of Ashanti Riley and the more so now Andrea Barrett, the latest victim. UNC Member of Parliament for Barataria San Juan, Saddam Hussein, is sticking to his guns that those pieces of legislation would not make the crime situation better, but complicate it more, a view contrary to Police Commissioner Gary Griffith, who time and time again stated that the amendments to the bail bill would work in the fight against crime.
Laws in this country alone is one part of the solution. There's a bigger part of the solution which is actually fixing a broken system, which is our criminal justice system. And the state is still waiting 15 years for the analysis of DNA samples to be completed in Sean Luke's murder trial.
However, when it comes to the revelation by Griffith that out of 1,800 CCTV cameras across the country, only 1,000 are functional, the MP is expressing concern. He is criticizing National Security Minister Stuart Young for his response in Parliament, calling it dismissive.
Minister Young knew since September 2018, when it was revealed in the parliament that those cameras were not working, that he did absolutely nothing from 2018 to present. We have heard about negotiations of contract. Why it is that these things are taking so long? He has failed as a Minister of National Security. And I think this morning we renew our call for Minister Stuart Young to go. He must resign.
Hussein also feels there should be a greater focus on technology such as proper camera footage, GPS tracking, and aerial surveillance to fight crime. Added to criminal justice reform, there are other pieces of legislation he'd like to see on the parliamentary agenda, among them the legalization of pepper spray.
We don't need to just lock up people for 120 days. We need to convict them in 120 days. That is the system that we are fighting for.
Hussein notes that in 2011, the Constitution Amendment Capital Offences Bill was tabled in Parliament by the then UNC government.
That bill proposed to categorize murder, deal with the issue of delay, where a person must be executed 5 years after the conviction, and other miscellaneous matters necessary for the re-implementation of the death penalty. There was extensive debate on this bill, and the then opposition PNM voted against the bill.
The death penalty is still a part of the laws of TNT, but if a murder trial is not completed within 5 years leading to a conviction, the rule in Pratt and Morgan kicks in, which rules out the death penalty as punishment. Meanwhile, UNC Senator David Nackett says crime is a product of social ills such as unequal opportunity, which he feels has been exacerbated by things such as the adjustments to the GATE program.
You cannot hold someone to account when you have not given them the tools to hold him to account.
Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
Over in Guyana, leader of the Alliance for Change and opposition member of parliament Kemraj Ramjatan, while reaffirming both his and the APNUAFC's support to the incumbent administration on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy, is nonetheless advising that President Irfan Ali should not engage in talks with Venezuela. HGP's Wendell Badri reports.
We do not want, however, him to make any slip-ups by wanting to dialogue with a belligerent. What Maduro is but a belligerent against Guyana.
Ramjatan made these remarks during an exclusive interview with this newscast on Wednesday. The Member of Parliament was at the time addressing recent flare-ups between Guyana and its western neighbor. While President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela issued a decree titled Territory for the Development of the Atlantic Facade on January 7th, claiming the land and maritime space west of Essequibo River, which is internationally recognized as part of Guyana's territory, the Guyanese president, Irfan Ali, publicly rejected Maduro's decree. The rejection of the decree by President Ali preceded the detention of 2 fishing vessels and their crew by a military vessel belonging to Venezuela on January 21st off Guyana's coast. Venezuelan authorities initially claimed that the Guyanese vessels were in Venezuela's maritime space and were engaged in illegal fishing. Guyana contested this by subsequently releasing the coordinates where the vessels had been intercepted, ratifying its claim that the crew and vessels were illegally detained in Guyana's waters. The crew, along with their vessels, were eventually released by Venezuelan authorities at the behest of the Venezuelan president, who came in for strong condemnation from regional and international bodies. The crew had been given food, water, and fuel to complete their journey home, which Maduro said reaffirmed his commitment to ensuring that the Caribbean region remains a zone of peace. Meanwhile, Ramjatan had this to say about the Venezuelan leader.
We feel that if anybody is pretentious here, it is Mr. Maduro.
He also said that Maduro is choosing to flex his muscles unduly instead of taking his claims to the International Court of Justice.
And that is also why Venezuela does not want to go to the ICJ. If you are a rule of law, sovereign territory, Venezuela, and you believe that there are institutions in the world that can deal with this matter to a finality, then you must utilize those institutions. Venezuela wants to use might as against right.
The AFC leader concluded on this note.
We will not give one blade of grass, not one cuirass. 83,000 square miles belong to all Guyanese.
The border controversy matter between the two countries is currently before the ICJ, with the case management hearing set for February 25th. Wendell Badri, HGP Nightly News.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the food fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now makes it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.